going back and forth between those and those that are happening live in the chat. So anyone that is here for this show gets an opportunity to ask me whatever questions they might like, 49er related. Sometimes they dip into food, cars. You never know what direction the questions are going to go. But again, those are the off-the-cuff answers. If you're here in the chat, ask me anything, type in at Rob or at Rob Shoe, so I know that you're talking to me and asking a question of your host. Like I said, I have a whole list, as you might imagine, being here in week 2. I have a long freaking list of questions that were previously submitted. Came in either through the Gmail account, 49ers mailbag at gmail.com, or in response to my tweet that I send out Tuesday mornings. Get a lot of responses to each of those, and I will go through your questions one by one. Again, those of you here live in the chat, first and foremost, do me that favor, hit that like button for me. If you enjoy the content, help me amplify the signal to more and more faithful, but also put your questions into the chat. I will come back into the chat after answering a couple of the questions that came in as previously submitted questions. Here we go. This is what I'm talking about. This is the critical type of question that needs to make it on the show. Kurt doing the good work. Says, Rob, 71 Plymouth Barracuda 440, purple and black. It's not even a question. It's just a statement of a badass car. And I'm here for it, Kurt. I'm here for it. I thought it was a question of purple or black, in which I would have gone purple, because when you've got a 71 CUDA, you got to make sure it stands out. Purple and black, absolutely acceptable as well. Want to say what's up to those that are here early in the chat. Spy Nick Danger doing the good deed, talking about hitting that like button. Dustin Kohler in the house says, glad Jimmy got all that quality time on the sidelines this preseason. Dustin's going to have no shortage of Jimmy Garoppolo comments for the remainder of this one. Dustin, our resident Lions fan here on the channel. Raphael 5629er Sneakerhead here on the channel says, what's up, Rob, Sneakerheads, and everyone. Randall Riley says, smash that like button. I think that meant like cement the like button, prevent defense the like button, whatever he says, smash it, Huff style. That part, very, very clear. And we've got Rick Diaz coming in to say, hey, Rob, how's it going over there in the west of Portland? I just wanted to say hi this evening. I'm doing okay. It's starting to rain here in Chicago. Hey, I've been in that Chicago rain. It's no joke. It's a little bit harsher than the rain in Portland, Oregon, which is weird to say. I was in the stands at Soldier Field, and that rain was some of the hardest I've been in my life. And I live in Portland, Oregon, and have lived here for the past 10 years. BK from the Bay coming in to say what's up. Moses Martinez, Alan Elizer, Ellis 10, talking about a 69 Chevelle 454. You know the big block, Ellis. You know this. Scott Hill in the house. Kevin coming in. All right. We are going to, Kevin, by the way, says, LOL, last time I seen a purple and black car was the Batmobile from the 70s. That was a bad ride as well. Very bad ride. All right. If you got the questions, keep them coming in the chat. I'm going to get into a couple of these previously submitted questions first. Appreciate everyone who is here on time. Let's get into this. Let's talk about the first couple of questions being the same here. And no surprise, because you know we had an injury to Tyrion Davis-Price. Going to be out. High ankle sprain. My guess would be that 4 to 6 week range. If it's less severe, it'll be on the shorter end of that, maybe even just 3 games. If it is more severe, probably the entirety there. Marlon Mack gets elevated to the squad because of that move, but it does open up this question. I got 2 of them about Jordan Mason. This first one comes in from Nicoya's. We're going to pair them together. So we're reading off Nicoya's first. Is there a chance we get to see Jordan Mason get some touches Sunday night against Denver? Coming in from Nicoya's. Again, similar question. Hey, Rob, what are your realistic expectations for Jordan Mason? Can he seize running back 1? Thanks. The Ayatollah of Rock and Rolla. First and foremost, great freaking name. Just a fun handle to say out loud. I'm all for it. The Ayatollah of Rock and Rolla. Second, can he seize running back 1? Yes. Yes. This is the week to claim Jordan Mason off of waivers if you play fantasy football. That is, if you didn't already do so, as I did in some of my leagues last week. The injury news presents a unique opportunity to Mason. Let's be honest. He may have gotten a shot anyway, simply being dressed on game day. Kyle goes with the hot hand. So if he had gotten some carries and shown some flashes, he could have grabbed the job just doing it that way. My bet now is that being running back 2, he will get some carries each game until the point where Marlon Mack proves he deserves more touches than Jordan Mason. I don't think that's going to be the case against Denver. So my prediction to the first question from Nicoyas was that, yes, we will see some Jordan Mason touches in Denver. And now that he is presumably running back 2 with Marlon Mack being behind him until he proves he deserves to be in front, he's now one injury away from being the starter. And you know how the 49ers go through running backs. I don't say that jokingly. I say that as a sad acknowledgement of how many injuries we've had at the position. Jeff Wilson Jr. runs very physically and at times runs very upright as well, doesn't shy away from contact. That's a recipe for getting dinged up at some point. So I fully expect Jordan Mason to get an opportunity. I really think he's going to capitalize on it and earn a permanent role on the offense. I'm going to make a bold prediction right now for the Jordan Mason stats on the year. I'm saying he eclipses 600 rushing yards. For reference, Jeff Wilson Jr. was the leading rusher in 2020, had just over 600 yards himself. In 2019, where we had 3 backs, 3-headed monster, you were sitting at around 700 yards per back. So 600 would be nothing to sneeze at from Jordan Mason on the season. All right, next question before I get back into those that are happening right now live in the chat. Again, if you have a 49ers question and you are now in the chat, type it in with @Rob_Shoe. How much of the new Lance offense do you think Kyle wants to keep in, even with Jimmy running the show? Comes in from John B. John, appreciate the question. I'm going to say more than I think most fans would expect. Probably won't see as much running, which will elicit some snide comments, but it's going to be more of a reflection on Jimmy's lack of running ability than any type of favoritism or any weirdness by Kyle Shanahan. I'm just not buying into the conspiracy theories. I get it that people want to go there. I simply will not. I would expect some of the shot plays to remain. We now have a far pricier asset along our deep threat route in Danny Gray. Used to have Travis Benjamin. It was easy to ignore Travis Benjamin. It was easy not to suit up Travis Benjamin on game days. Danny Gray, you spent a pretty valuable draft pick to bring him in. I would expect him to get a chance to prove himself this year. It would be a bit of malpractice not to get him involved in the gameplay. It should be tough, too, for Jimmy to overthrow Danny Gray. I know we have one historic overthrow here for this franchise. Jimmy can just chuck it up. Plus, I want to point out, Jimmy was talking about how it felt a bit like 2017 out there after the game, the way he was slinging it around. That would be a wonderful element to add to this offense that we didn't have previously when Jimmy was in there. Again, appreciate the question, John B. Going to get into your comments and questions happening live now in the chat. They could be about a fancy muscle car that you dream about, perhaps even one that you own, or they could be 49ers related. Moses Martinez says, Rob Shoe, working overtime, watching your show. Tired of the 49ers fan base being divided. It's so stupid and immature. I have to agree. I am attempting... I've been getting comments on my channel, right, that seem as if I'm interpreted as being on one side or the other. And I very much try to convince these people that's not the case. I am a big fan of Trey Lance. I am a big fan of Jimmy Garoppolo. Guess what? I'm a huge fan of the San Francisco 49ers. And I'm not picking one over the other. I'm picking the team above all else. And so right now, I'm aligned with what I would guess Trey Lance is feeling. I bet he's rooting for all of his teammates. I bet he wants them to succeed. So while I felt like some of the comments that have come in have painted me as taking one side or the other, I have to do a better part of not then becoming defensive, of not encouraging it to devolve into an argument or a heated exchange. I have to be the voice of reason. I got to take that upon myself. And I apologize to anyone that, I may have misplaced a comment that came in from someone else, and I carried that same energy forward into responding to someone else's comment, because I attempt to get every comment on my page that's left underneath the videos. I love the dialogue back and forth, and I want it to be respectful. And I think it's fair to have differing opinions on who you believe should be the starter right now, who gives the 49ers a better chance to win, who should be the starter going forward. All those things are on the table for discussion, so long as it's a reasonable, rational discussion. I'm in it. Alan Eliza, Rob Shue, good evening. What do you think Jimmy brings over Nate? A significant amount. Nate Sudfeld is a backup quarterback. He's not going to beat out Jared Goff on the Lions. He is someone that I would have felt coming in, we could have won a couple of games. Jimmy's a guy that coming in, starting all 17, I look at this schedule, I think Jimmy could probably win 11 or 12 of those games. 11 or 12 versus if we had Sudfeld all year long, maybe 4. So I think that Jimmy is significantly more of a passer than Nate Sudfeld. The quick release, his ability to hit the short and intermediate throws. And let's just be honest, that every now and then he throws a decent deep ball. The one to Brandon Ayuk that hit him in the hands was gorgeous. Scott Hill coming in to say what's up, and I appreciate it. Lester San Jose, sneakerhead here on the channel, says, Rob Shue, looking forward to a good discussion minus the outside noise. We are going to try and keep that out. For now, Raphael 5629ers, this is one of my favorites, a 70 Challenger. We're just talking a little bit of cars here on this one. Steven Fernandez saying, Rob Shue, Jimmy is rubbing his hands like an evil villain because of all those bonuses he's going to get. Yeah, he is going to get most of that money that it seemed the Niners had negotiated away from him. Probably getting the majority of it. Randall Riley says, pre-meant since we were in the chat earlier. Rob, I love it. Premeditated almost. Jan coming in to say what's up. Let's see. Looking for those questions at Rob Shue. Here we go. Starco fan 212 coming in says, Rob Shue, do you think Kurt is good signing as a practice squad quarterback? The 49ers did sign Marlon Mack to the 53-man roster, and they did sign the backup quarterback who had last been with the Green Bay Packers on their practice squad to the 49ers practice squad. Jack Hammer and I talked about this on his program yesterday. That was the same quarterback they brought in when they worked out Marlon Mack and the other running backs. Clearly, they brought that quarterback in to make the throws that day. They must have seen enough from him to then trust him as the next body they wanted to bring in. I do not expect him to overtake Brock Purdy as the backup quarterback. If it is between those two, I think Purdy holds on to the backup. The only one I could expect coming in would be like a Josh Johnson. And even so, you might want to keep Purdy on the 53-man and Josh Johnson on the practice squad. Jan saying, Rob, let Jimmy microwave. Microwave. Indeed. BK from the Bay. Rob, 59ers, that's the other Bay Area team. There's the 49ers and the 59ers. BK from the Bay says, 49ers signed Kurt Benkert today off Green Bay's practice squad. Yes, they did. Rick Diaz, hey, Rob, I like Joe Montana's number behind you and the frame. Where'd you get that? If it was a gift or your wife got it for you, and you must have had a lot of stuff for the 49ers there, I've got a ton of stuff here. So behind me is a framed Joe Montana jersey. Got it signed by Joe at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. Said hello to him. Had a lot to say, but he's my hero. So when I got up to the front of the line, I was a little bit tongue-tied, which is weird for some of you to hear, me not being able to say some words. Clearly, I like to talk. But when I met Joe, all I could get out was "you're my hero" type of stuff. And then I got it framed here in Portland, Oregon. I got the map of all the stadiums where I'm putting pins in one by one. Still have to put in the Chicago Bears pin for Soldier Field, having checked off that location. You can't see the one above it, but it is a Candlestick Park black and white photo that is right up there. And then I got the catch up there. Frank Gore's jersey is right over here in a wall of memorabilia. A bunch of stuff from the 49ers. Yes. The man cave is quite full. I've been collecting for a long time. The Oakdale Bubba Niners show. Rob, are you going to be in Portland, Oregon, watching the game on TV, or are you going to Colorado to watch the game in the stadium, watch the Niners beat the Broncos? I'm going to Denver, and you know what? There's going to be a pregame show. Pretty excited, trying to get together with Steph Sanchez, another YouTube personality, to do a live show in the parking lot of Denver Stadium. Maybe interview some fans. Could be lit. Going to be a new experience. I hope you guys help me hype that one up if we make it happen. BK from the Bay says, my bad, Rob. Hey, typos are typos. Don't worry about it, my friend. Don't worry about it. Clown Man coming in. Agree. I'm so sick of divisiveness, man. Yo, kids, stop thinking everybody hates Trey or Jimmy. It's the dark cloud over this country in general. Let's all wake up. Great job, man. Appreciate that, Clown Man. I agree. I don't know why we feel this need to be so combative with one another. It is a confusing place to be in time, and I wish it weren't the case with 49er fans. Alan Eliza, Rob Shue, I'm with you. Niners first over whom the cute quarterback is. That could just be. See, this is the kind of energy that's a bit off, Tom. Tom, I got to ask you to maybe keep that tone down a little bit. I want to be respectful. I want to allow opposing views. I have no problem with criticism of fans, of quarterbacks, of players, of coaches, but I do want to keep it respectful. Tom says we're never going to win with this scrub. Says toxic fans rooting for Jimmy. How is someone toxic that's rooting for the starting quarterback of the franchise? Trey is out for the year. I like Trey Lance. I wanted Trey Lance to be the starting quarterback this year. I was all in favor of that. Trey Lance is now out for the season. I'm so grateful that Jimmy Garoppolo managed to stick around on this roster. I thought that was a terrible idea. I thought it was horrible to re-sign Jimmy Garoppolo. I thought it was going to be chaotic. Turned out it was an insurance policy that was desperately needed, and now I'm 100% rooting for Jimmy Garoppolo. Tom, I have to ask you, why would you not be rooting for Jimmy Garoppolo? Are you a 49ers fan? If you are a 49ers fan, why would you not be rooting for your starting quarterback? That's absurd to me. And I don't mean to sound as if I'm attacking you. It just this types of energy, it's wild to me is what it is, Tom. And I welcome your response, though, and I'll try not to be attacking in my tone in any future comments that you do make. But I would appreciate it if you put in some logic of why you feel that way. Moses says, Rob Shue, can you believe I was asked to basically pick Trey Lance's side or Jimmy's side? Hell no. I've been a 49er fan since 84 and will never choose a side. I just want my team to win. I don't see any problem with that, Moses. I don't see any problem with that at all. Leaving Rob Shue, the team mishandled Jimmy and Trey, at least publicly. Never fully behind Trey and never let Jimmy go. This is a fair criticism to me. If you're upset at the way the 49ers chose to handle this situation, the way in which they handled publicly both Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo, I think that's a very fair criticism. The idea of not rooting for the team now that Trey is injured or of not pulling for Jimmy now that he's the starting quarterback, those are more confusing to me. Lester San Jose, Rob Shue, do you think there would be a chance Lance would be kept past the rookie contract given what he's enduring, a la Alex Smith? I think there's absolutely a chance. There are 2 years remaining on that rookie deal with a 5th-year option lingering as well. Lance has every opportunity to turn this around. Peter Lee, Rob Shue, will Jimmy's health make it to the Chiefs Super Bowl home rematch or Tom Brady's homecoming? If so, those home games will be fun at Levi's. Jimmy G versus Mahomes, Jimmy G versus Tom Brady, 2017 Jimmy. My bet on this, and I'm going to get into Jimmy's health in a little bit. My bet is yes. I think he is around for those games. And I realize I'm betting on Jimmy's health, and that is a risky thing to do. But that's the wager I am making. Jaguayo 56, Sneakerhead here on the channel says, Rob, do you feel Kittle will play versus Denver? I do. I think him being at the WWE event is a positive signal. Kyle Shanahan indicated as much. He was really close to playing in week 2. Typically, it's a 2-week type of an injury. He's now well beyond that. Yes, I believe that he will play this week, and I do want to see my fantasy team be better for having George Kittle out there. Kevin says you'll need to extend that map, talking about this one with the stadiums, Rob. Hopefully the Niners will come back to the UK. I'll get your ticket and hotel room at the nearby Hilton, assuming it's at Wembley Arena in London again. Kevin, I'm there. I'm so there. We are absolutely going to make that happen. I'll either get a new map that I put right off to the side here, just special for London, or we'll put it on the side in the middle of the ocean, indicating that it took a trip across the pond to get there. Rick Diaz says, yeah, I saw that, Rob. You're lucky to have Joe Montana. You're a lucky man. I always wanted to get that one in a frame of his jersey. You know, signed, oh, well, it is what it is. Hey, someday you'll get one. Just keep that in mind. And will it to happen? Abraham coming in. Rob, I feel like I can't be optimistic about this season. Nothing against Jimmy, but I feel like it's a stretch to think Jimmy can stay healthy. History shows he can't. And if he's out for a few games, yeah, we're on to Brock Purdy. Abraham goes on to say, with our tough schedule, we might not make the playoffs having Purdy. Again, I think this is a very fair take to me. It is based off of historical context. Jimmy Garoppolo has struggled to stay healthy, even last season where predominantly he was healthy. He missed some games. I'd be okay with Purdy coming in for a game or two to fill in. If it is a serious injury, I agree. It's unlikely that the 49ers go all that far. You won't see, I'm hesitant to say, Jimmy will take some shots, and Jimmy has gotten injured. So it is my wager that he will make it through, but I understand those who are in complete doubt of it. And other than a gut feeling, I have nothing to go on there. History says Jimmy will miss some games. Alan Eliza, Rob Shue, when I met the GOAT, Jerry Rice, I was totally tongue-tied. I met him at the American Red Cross, about to give blood. I know how it is to meet one of your heroes. With Jerry, it would be even worse for me. I was at Joe Montana, Ronnie Lott's Hall of Fame induction, and I got to shake Ronnie Lott's hand. I got to shake Eddie D's hand. Both of those, I was like, it was just the hand. She just stick out the hand. I was 21 years old, didn't know what the hell I was doing. But shaking Ronnie Lott's hand was something else. Eddie D, too. I was surprised how short Eddie was. Really caught me off guard. Ellis 10 says, Rob Shue, do you think Kittle will be back week 3? Yes, I do. Talking about that one. It is going to feel good to beat it did feel good beating the Seahawks. It will feel good beating Russell Wilson. Hello to that. CT Law says, Rob, you know some fans are player-specific as well as team. So when your guy gets mistreated, you get in your feelings. I mean, Jimmy did some good things here, deserved to be treated better. It is one of those things where if you get very attached to your own player, it can be hard to disassociate from that disappointment. And I get that. And I don't mean to be overly critical of anyone who is incredibly saddened, mad, or hurt at the idea of Trey Lance being out for the season. I can understand pinning your hopes and dreams to an individual and just being devastated. In particular, the younger that you are. I was far less rational as a younger man. And certainly if you go back to the years where Joe Montana got hurt and we were going back and forth between Steve Bono and Steve Young, I was not as logical of an individual. If I looked at myself back then, I would be a little bit critical of some of the things that came out of my own mouth. So I don't mean to be overly critical of people who feel that way right now. I want to admit that I understand where you're coming from and encourage you to wrap your arms around the organization as a whole, much like I would wager Trey Lance is doing in rooting for his teammates to have success, looking at those 52 other players that he was out there with and wanting them to go forward and finish the mission he started. Flav coming in, saw Kittle last night at WWE event, said he's playing this week. He's also FaceTime Trey while he was there and was cheering him up. All this Kittle bashing is a joke. Jimmy is just better right now. The last part, I think, takes away from the rest of your comment here, Flav. That last sentence around Jimmy, I think could have been left off and it would have made a stronger point about what you were alluding to begin with. Because, yes, I also believe that Kittle is going to play this week. Signs seem to indicate as much. I'm very thrilled to hear that those words are coming out of his mouth, although he was pretty optimistic he was going to play last week. I will say the fact that he reached out to Trey is further evidence of what I already believe to be true, and that is every player on that team wishes Trey well, feels for Trey as a fellow brother in arms, roots for him as a teammate, as a member of their locker room. The last statement, I'm not saying it's incorrect, because I do think starting this year, the more efficient quarterback would have been Jimmy Garoppolo. Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch and the rest of the coaching staff were banking on the idea that Lance could win early while using his legs and progress as a passer, and that by the end of the season, having invested in Lance throughout the year, he would be a better prepared passer to offer more than Jimmy Garoppolo did at the end of the season. But that logic also would say that the 49ers probably shared that sentiment that at the beginning of the season, before Trey made progression, before he got more comfortable throwing from the pocket, that yes, Jimmy might have been more efficient coming in running this offense. But it was the upside, and the upside that they would have seen this season had he not gotten hurt, or believe they would have seen this season had he not gotten hurt, that the 49ers were investing in. And I understand why they chose to invest in that. All right, scrolling back to get to some of these comments that I haven't got to so far. Sorry, Luke Luna. I see that. Luke Luna, sneakerhead here on the channel, says it won't let me send a super chat. I'm sorry to hear that, but that is okay. Luke, I know the intention. Throw up your message anyway, my friend. You know that I will put it in there. Just hit me with an @Rob. We'll make sure that that thing gets onto the air. Luke. All right, let me get back into some of these comments that I skipped over. And don't worry, I will be back into the previously submitted questions as well. G-Bone Patron says, Rob, went ahead and made deep dish pizza because it was like early Christmas whooping the Sea Chickens. I'm telling you, the people who got no joy out of the 49ers winning against the Seahawks, man, I feel badly for those people. Beating the Seahawks should be something that we celebrate. It should be something that we don't take for granted. And I know it's hard to really hold two things true. One being complete sadness for Trey Lance and disappointment at him not being able to take that next step in his career, but also celebrating that win because life is too short not to celebrate the wins. John B says, Rob, with the redshirt year and an injury year, it almost guarantees that the 49ers will have Lance play on his fifth-year option. They need all the time they can get to keep him cheap and see what he is. John, I think that's an astute way of putting it. I would agree. The 49ers are most likely to pick up that fifth-year option just to see what they have, even if by that point they've decided that they're not going to fully commit in that direction. Rick Diaz, hey, Rob, tell me yes or no to the office line, got to protect our quarterback this Sunday and next week too, and the rest of the season, the offensive line. I think what that is supposed to say is, hey, Rob, tell me yes or no on the offensive line, got to protect our quarterback this Sunday, not the office line, which would be great because that's what she said. That would be the office line, Michael Scott saying that's what she said. The offensive line does need to protect the quarterback. I'm feeling far better about the offensive line than I was at the beginning of this season. They have shown me that they are capable. Leaving, Rob Shue, I'll defend Tom. It's the Trey is a bust after 3 games fans with no compassion for his injury. See retracted messages in chat. I am 1,000% against anyone who comes across with that type of messaging as well. What I don't want it to sound like is that I'm criticizing the extremists on one side of this equation and not criticizing the extremists on the other. Anyone who was talking trash on Trey, who was not supportive of Trey, who celebrated his injury, I don't understand any of that any better than not rooting for your team. Like both of those things are unacceptable in my humble opinion as a fan. They're not unacceptable. I do not want to have them in my life. You can make your own decisions about keeping that type of negativity around that type of rage directed at fellow fans. That is an individual decision. I personally don't want to surround myself with people who go to the negative, who would rather live in that space than see the glass as half full, than turn around and support this team. So leaving, I appreciate you clarifying that, and I do get it. What I would say is I see both of those parties, anyone who now doesn't support Jimmy or anyone who previously didn't support Lance, I see those as flawed viewpoints in my humble opinion there. All right, got a couple more super chats to get into here. Base Spokane Niner fan, you in Spokane, Washington, says, has anyone spoken to Lance? The play was an RPO. In the afterthought, did he have another option? Did he tuck and run too fast? I heard, and I don't know that this is 100% true. I don't know that this is true at all. So this is hearsay, and I'm spreading it, which is a bad idea. But I'm telling you it's hearsay. And you can check it for yourself, that Kyle Shanahan was talking to Trey after the injury, and Trey was already asking him about that play and what he might have done differently. I chose to believe that because it matches up with what I know about Trey, that he wants to get better with a passion, the ultimate passion to continue getting better and better as a true competitor. So I would say I mean, he did have another option. It was the same play that was run to Debo 2 plays earlier where Debo got 51 yards. This one was to Ray McCloud. He certainly could have handed it off. It is up for debate as to what the appropriate choice would have been. But like Kyle Shanahan said, once you know the end result is Trey gets injured, you obviously would have called a different play on that one if you go back and change it. Marlon coming in. Rob, good stuff as always. Regardless of what the current quarterback situation is right now, I'm excited for what I'm seeing with the defense. Hufanga is looking like a beast. I freaking love what Hufanga is doing, throwing himself all around the field, just flying around. This defense looks exactly as I had hoped that they would. I'm telling you, top 3 defense in the league right here. Bosa on track for, more than 20 sacks, and that was a prediction that I had at the beginning. I'm telling you, this defense is elite, and I am absolutely ecstatic about that fact because we're going to need this defense, much like 2019. I feel very similar about that. All right, I'm going to get back into the comments in just a moment, but I got these previously submitted questions that I have to get to here. This one coming in from Lionel L. says, do you think Kyle will adjust his play calling to prevent any current or future 49er quarterbacks from getting injured? My answer to that is a hell no, coming in from Lionel. So Lionel is in doubt that Kyle will change. I got to say, I tend to agree. He's going to call the plays he thinks give the team the best advantage. With Jimmy, that's going to include a fair number of quarterback sneaks on 3rd and 4th and short. Actual runs with Jimmy are going to be seldom, more so because he's just not effective at running them. The most fascinating question yet to be answered, will we see any of the triple option that the Niners were practicing with Lance now that Jimmy's back out there? Probably not often, if at all, but it is a wrinkle that they did add in the offseason. When Trey comes back, I'd expect him to be running again, and I know that that's going to incense a fair number of fans, but that's the advantage of a dual threat quarterback, and I think that's how Kyle Shanahan sees it. Kyle will lean more on Lance's legs until his arm catches up and he can consistently beat teams from the pocket. That's the piece that Kyle's really waiting on there. Until Shanahan feels he can do that without the added stress of his legs being applied to the defense, he's going to continue to run him because it does stress the defense. It does cause them to have to account for something else, thus opening up wider passing lanes. I also will acknowledge that Shanahan may have felt more at ease running Lance because he had such a good insurance policy. But I don't say that to imply that coach has any malice or ill intent towards Trey. He's attempting to win games. Swan Song comes in. He says, will Kyle have the same run usage early on next year with Trey if Trey is the exact same passer he is before he got hurt? This is the unabbreviated version I'm reading to you here, the longer version. If the answer is yes, then I'm worried. If the answer is no, then Kyle actually learned that quarterbacks should probably not run through the A or B gap often. Coming in from Swan Song. Obviously, I shortened that so that it could fit on the screen here. Answer is, if he's the exact same passer to start next season, then the 49ers made a mistake. I'm not afraid to call that out. There's absolutely a chance that Lance doesn't take the step forward that are needed. I don't believe that's going to be the case, but it is possible. If Lance doesn't progress as a passer, he's not going to make it in the NFL. I just think that's a fact. I do think he will progress, so I don't think that statement comes to fruition. Kyle had a difficult task of balancing a player that needed more experience with a roster ready to compete and a veteran quarterback that was willing to stick around because the trade market played out interestingly once he had that surgery. I have zero doubt that Kyle's intention was to run Lance less as he progressed with his passing abilities. Could you argue that if he felt that way, if he thought, hey, Lance isn't ready unless he uses his legs, he could have started Jimmy? Yeah, he could have. Kyle made a calculated risk that Lance would improve fast enough as a passer such that he didn't have 200 rushing attempts on the season. The injury makes it so that we won't know how quickly he may have improved. We won't know if Kyle Shanahan was right. He took a risk, and that risk blew up in his face. I predict that Lance will still be running the same plays, just with less frequency once he returns. But I think that's going to be because he is a better passer at that time. He's not the speed runner like Lamar, but his legs are a weapon that should be used beyond just scrambling. All right, I'm going to get back into your comments that are happening live in the chat. Got to try to catch up here. Appreciate everyone coming in with the super chats as well. All right, looking. Casey says, Rob, do you have any 49ers tattoos? Randomly, I don't. Several car tattoos. The old sign, Pontiac Service. Yeah, that's tattooed right here on my shoulder. I have a big goat holding the bumper of a GTO on my back. Mean Streets Performance, my old car crew from my teenage years. I got a lot of tattoos early on in life. I don't regret any of them, but let's just say some of them are not spectacular. And I still like them. They remind me of choices I made earlier in my life, a person that I used to be. But yeah, car tattoos, no 49ers tattoos. Jaguayo 56 says, Rob, what was your assessment of McGlinchey's play versus the Seahawks? I thought he was solid. I did too. I thought McGlinchey bounced back from week one. The entire offensive line bounced back from week one, if you ask me. The Oakdale Bubba Niners show. Left shoe. Jimmy Garoppolo misses George Kittle. Let's ask Frank Gore to come out of retirement to play running back for us this season to go to the Super Bowl. Get Frank Gore a Super Bowl ring. I would love that. It ain't happening, but I would love it. Ellis10 Sneakerhead here on the channel. Rob Shoe, I know it's only week 3, but the SF defense is ranked number 1 in lowest total yards allowed, passing yards allowed, and number 2 in rushing yards allowed, 3rd in points allowed. Granted, it's Chicago and Seattle, and Chicago was played in a monsoon. And the schedule gets tougher down the stretch. This defense is elite, and I think will be elite at the end of the season, but they've got some tests ahead of them. Alan and Eliza are coming in. Niners over Seahawks, and Darth Carroll was totally awesome. Now we need to beat our kryptonite and Russell Wilson on Sunday. Alan, isn't it going to feel good? Isn't it going to feel good? We're going to. Charles coming in. Rob, I was excited to see what Lance would do this year, but our season has still got a chance. We will keep Lance. He has the talent. He is still young. Agreed. This season is not lost. It would have been had we turned it over to Nate Sudfeld. I don't want a lost season, so I'm in favor of the fact that we're turning it over to Jimmy Garoppolo. I am also in favor of it still being Lance's team come next year. Luke Luna coming in. Rob Shoe tattooing. Just wanted to stop and send him love. Much appreciated. Much appreciated, Luke. Keep up those tats. Charles Alt. Rob Shoe, I was excited to see. I got that one. Got that one. Luke Luna coming back in. Rob Shoe, it went from development year and being excited and happy to making a run and excited and happy to watch. All right. It went from development year and being excited and happy to watch to making a run and excited and happy to watch. Both are things we can get behind. I still thought we were making a run with Trey. I believed that development was going to come followed by a run at the end. I agree. With Jimmy, the run is here. Rob, I support both Lance and Jimmy. Not going to lie, a lot of energy and excitement went into this year with the new young quarterback. The injury was definitely deflating. 1,000%, I am in complete alignment with you here. I am behind Lance and Jimmy. They're both 49ers. I'm behind the entire roster. And I was really excited about Trey Lance. Really excited about what he was going to show this year. Really saddened that he takes that step back in his progression. David, sir, Rob Shoe, what do you make of these Trey's medical timeline reports being 10 to 12 weeks and a possibility of returning towards the latter part of the season? I'm all for it. I'm glad that they set the expectation that he's out for the season so that we can stop the conversation about it. But if he comes back and he's healthy, work the man back in. He brings something to the game. Luke Luna, Rob Shoe, I've heard fans saying that if you felt Trey wasn't ready and needed more development, then you shouldn't have put him out there. Meanwhile, they say, I won't watch. Bye. Show up till he is. It is odd to follow one player above the team. I will say that. I also think it's a fair argument to say, hey, if he wasn't ready to win without his legs, maybe you shouldn't put him out there. That is a more reasonable argument than blaming Kyle Shanahan for getting Trey injured. That one to me just doesn't fly. 420 Savage. Rob Shoe, do you think the 49ers are better than last season? I most definitely do think they are better than last season. This roster is deep. Rob Shoe, appreciate the fairness and the positive attitude. You're very welcome. Abraham, Rob, how can he progress? He has to heal up and then rehab. That's an unfair statement, in my opinion, because of his injury. He will have an entire offseason. If he cannot progress in an offseason, then that's problematic. He'll be working with his throwing coach, right? He'll be back down in Southern California. He'll have another preseason to go through. He'll have another training camp to go through. Those are critical times. Yes, he needs in-game reps, no doubt about that. And in-game reps will provide a type of improvement that he can't get in the offseason. My statement is geared around the idea that Trey Lance has to work on his accuracy on some specific throws. That's my interpretation of where Trey Lance struggles. And the perfect time to do that, the perfect time to work on your throwing motion is in the offseason. Get it locked in so that when you're under live fire, you don't go back to old habits. Most throwing coaches will tell you that that is the case. So those improvements are what I hope to see in the offseason. They will then matriculate onto the field when they do step out there in 2023. Swan Song, Rob Shue, his progression has to be on the field. Mental reps aren't going to get him there. I'm not talking about mental reps. I'm talking about throwing reps. I'm talking about a specific repeatable throwing motion. All right, Matthew Mears, you got to say what you're talking about. Rob, you spinning circles now, whack. I don't know what I'm spinning circles about. If it's supporting two different quarterbacks, then guilty. I support each quarterback on my team. I support each player on my team. I don't know what else you might think I'm spinning circles about, but I welcome criticism. As long as it's respectful, you're not getting blocked simply for criticizing me on this channel. Bootswain Boogie 03 says, Rob, Jimmy has no pressure to outperform coming off the bench this year. As long as he stays healthy, he should be pretty relaxed under center. On the other hand, that chip has never been so big. I think this sets up for a great season for Jimmy Garoppolo. He's playing for his next contract. There's very little pressure on him. A lot of people are already doubting the man. I think it sets up nicely for a storybook type of season. I'm here for it. Luke Luna, Rob Shue. I think Kyle would have liked to wait another year, but this fan base and the hate, they won't buy merch, come to games, or watch his team. It didn't help, but now they're calling for his job. I'm not so sure Kyle listens to the noise coming from the fan base. I think he does what he believes to be correct. I think he made a calculation on Trey Lance and that he could win some of those early games this year with Trey's legs and that Trey would get up to speed quickly. Jaguayo 56, faithful then, faithful now isn't just a motto to true 49er fans. Well said. Charles Alt, Rob Shue, I was excited to see what Lance would do this year, but our season has still got a chance. We got that one. We got that one, Charles. Ellis, Rob Shue, to the fans saying that Trey Lance is a bust. Trey has better numbers in his first three starts than Josh Allen had in his first three starts. Let's just give it time before we write him off. There is no reason to write off Trey Lance at this point in time. Do we need to monitor him coming back from this injury to make sure that he is fully healed? Yes, absolutely. But to label him a bust feels so premature. 420 Savage, would you trade Jimmy for Matt Ryan? I would not. I would not. David Sir, Rob, Tim Tebow ran the ball 12 times per start. Trey Lance rushed 13 times per start. Kyle Shanahan ran Trey Lance more than Tim Tebow. Let that sink in. Kyle Shanahan, Trey Lance had 4 starts. 4 starts. The first one, he was still healing from a broken finger and had very little experience, was clearly not ready to be a pocket passer. So yes, they leaned on his legs. Second one, the Texans, much more of a realistic game. Go back and look at those stats. A little more reasonable. Week 1 against Chicago was the Bears in a monsoon game. So again, small sample size. I don't think you can look at those 4 starts, project it out, and say anything definitive about it. My expectation is that Trey would have continued to run less and less this year as he progressed as a pocket passer. John B. Kyle Shanahan said Trey Lance wasn't like Lamar and couldn't be ran like that because he was a pocket passer who could run, then had his run usage higher than you'd think with that statement, needed more balance. I agree in criticizing Kyle Shanahan for the number of times that Trey was run. I think that is fair. When you start to then magnify that out and say Kyle would have continued to run Trey at that same clip, that's the piece I have a little bit more issue with. And the people who say Trey shouldn't be running at all, I also have issue with. It's a delicate balance of finding the usage, looking at each game individually, what circumstance the Niners were in for each game, and then criticizing fairly. All right, I'm getting into a couple more comments of the previously submitted questions. Just looking to see that I haven't missed anything critical in the chat as well. Absolutely appreciate the dialogue and the enthusiasm in the chat as well. A lot of comments in there to get through. Okay, I will be right back into the chat in just a moment. This one comes in from Los D. Is it my imagination, or does the locker room being divided, one side for Trey and one side for Jimmy, present an underlying issue? I'm just going to say this. I don't know how much divide actually exists, but regardless of what does exist, it doesn't exist anymore as an issue. I know that's a cold way to look at it, but the rest of the season relies on the health of Jimmy Garoppolo. This locker room is full of professionals. Even those that are closest to Lance want to win at all costs. That's the name of the game in the NFL. So I believe everyone will be in support of Jimmy for this season without question. They have one common goal as a team. Just like if Trey had stayed on as a quarterback and the Niners were winning consistently, the team would have been fully on board with him. The big question comes at the end of the season. How does the year end up? Is it a successful season? Does Jimmy lead the team on a run? We might be back at square one next offseason. No clear answers about Trey, a proven winning formula with Jimmy as a quarterback. I don't look forward to that. It's going to be stressful again. I'm going to have people telling me that I'm on some side when I'm not on any side. And then I'll get called for going back and forth just because I have a reasonable take that says I support any quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers. And I'm not here for that bullshit. I'm here to root for my team. I don't know why this upsets me so much. It does, though. The animosity amongst fans gets to me. It does. What's your opinion on the locker room split? Gold Rush podcast. I'd say overblown. The locker room split was an exaggerated topic, in my opinion. I do not believe that anyone on the team was playing less fervently when Lance was out there. I do not believe that at all. Were there players that are friends of Jimmy? Yes, no doubt. Are there players who may be more confident they can win with Jimmy? I'd say that's likely, but I'd also say that these are professionals that very badly want to win games and believe themselves capable of winning games with either quarterback. Either way, the split becomes less of an issue until this offseason. At that time, depending on the result of this year, it could be increasingly more prevalent. All right, one more previously submitted, then we'll get back to the comments in the chat. Is the Shanahan-Lance era over? Coming in from Al and Joe's pod. No, the Shanahan-Lance era isn't over. Lance will be here through his rookie contract, even if it ended up being as a backup, which I don't believe is going to be the case. I'm optimistic about this season, but I think it takes probably another trip to the NFC Championship game or even the Super Bowl for Jimmy to end up sticking around. So the odds would indicate there's a better chance that Jimmy doesn't stick around. As long as Lance makes a full recovery from his ankle injury, I'd expect Lance to start again next year and the Lance era to begin again anew. I do not believe this is the end of the Lance era whatsoever. All right, getting back into the chat. Lester San Jose says, Rob Shue, did you see Womack being the instant fit he has been since draft day? Almost makes K1 an afterthought. No way. I got on the hype train early because I'm a fan of Jackhammer. He and I collaborate quite a bit, and he was my eyes and ears at training camp. I picked his brain on air and off, and he was talking about Samuel Womack. What I saw in the preseason with my own eyes reinforced that belief. So this doesn't come out of left field, but in no way did I expect him to be this stellar this early. Nor did I expect Talanoa Hufanga to be the stud that he is. I got to admit, I was questioning the decision to go in with Hufanga penciled in as the starter opposite of Jimmy Ward. I was wrong to question that. Charles Alt, I see I have my son Hook on your show now. Love back-to-back primetime games before we get to see them live in Carolina. Looking forward to that Carolina game. Yes, we got back-to-back Charles Alt comments. Charles III and Charles IV. Rob Shue, do you think Trey plays when he's healthy or keep him for the offseason? If he gets healthy this year, that's going to be an interesting scenario. It will depend upon where the 49ers are with win-loss record. You would think if he is fully recovered, you'd get him back in there. Ellis 10, sneakerhead here on the channel. Rob Shue, remember when Hoyer was the 49ers starting quarterback? Oh man, they've come a long way. Yes, they have. And I'm glad that we're not in that seat again. Daryl, hey Rob, moving forward, do you think Jimmy will be able to do better in the deep passing game? He tried to get the ball to Gray. I do think he'll have more success in the passing game because I believe Shanahan will leave more shots in there. He's seen what defenses do when he doesn't take those shots. They crowd the line of scrimmage and make it impossible for Jimmy Garoppolo and his skill set. You got to take the shots. And you just have to hope that Jimmy is on target with more of them. Tom coming in. Rob, if Trey comes back, we need a backup. Swan Song, what are we talking here, Rob Shue? Wait a minute. Oh, he's saying practicing on air is not the same thing. Many veteran quarterbacks have said this. I disagree. When we're talking about throwing motion, getting the reps is imperative. Reps that are not under fire. Go ask a quarterback coach. Swan Song, this is the first time I think we've had an actual disagreement. When you go ask a quarterback coach, they talk about making sure that that motion is concrete, repetitive, and set in stone before you go back out under live fire bullets. Because when you get back under live fire, you tend to revert to those old habits. If you directly contradict that statement, I'm willing to continue this dialogue. But if you do some sort of a straw man argument or move the goalposts, I can't continue with this one. But if you address that, where I'm talking about getting a concrete throwing motion down, because we know Trey Lance has been working on his throwing motion. That is no secret. And it can be done with a QB coach. That's what the QB coaches are for. Jaguile, Rob, do you think that Armstead and Kinlaw will get even better as they get more accustomed to each other's moves? I do. Kinlaw has been eating up the double teams. And Armstead, man, anyone who talked trash on Armstead early in their career has a lot of crow still to eat. That man is a stud. 49ers first takes coming in. First and foremost, a 49ers fan. Hearing players speak off the record, saying they're relieved Jimmy is playing after the game while the kid sits in the hospital awaiting surgery is disgusting and gross. Without going to a direct quote from a player, I'm hesitant to comment on this one because I agree. The sentiment of bashing a player while he is in the hospital getting surgery is not something I'm on board with. However, I didn't interpret those comments to be bashing Trey. I thought it was a specific question asked about how they felt playing with Jimmy Garoppolo, and it was an honest answer. And I don't have issue with that. If it were attacking Trey, I would have issue with that. I don't have the direct quote in front of me, Aaron. And so, again, I'm hesitant to comment specifically on a direct quote without reading that direct quote. And I honestly think that's part of what happens on Twitter. That's why things spin out of control in these arguments is we talk about facts, but we don't all share the same facts. And so, again, without calling up that comment and bringing it in, and if you would like to put it in the chat, I'd welcome you to do so, where it is a direct quote from a reputable source, I will absolutely respond to that. Abraham, Rob, yes, I agree. His accuracy is an issue in the middle of the field, but in my opinion, you have to give him time. Last year, they gave it to Jimmy. This year is an injury, and next year would be his first. He was going to get the time this year, Abraham. That's my contention. The 49ers leaned on his ability to run such that he might get the time to progress as a passer. It's those two things coming together, needing to win right now, having a Super Bowl roster, believing that Trey needed to improve as a passer, knowing he had the ability to run, and saying to themselves, we'll just lean on his running ability until this gets better. But we got to keep winning. I think that's the take on it. Ronnie, Rob, who takes the snaps behind Jeff Wilson? Is it Mack or the rookie? This game, I think it's Jordan Mason. Then it's dependent upon what Jordan Mason is able to do with his opportunities this game. Edgardo Rosario, Rob, does Jimmy ball out and have to re-sign himself for a bigger dollar amount? Shaking my head. He's not getting a new contract this season around, but he may earn himself a big one. I think he's in for a reasonable season. Ryan Anthony, Rob, media has turned fans against each other. Either you are a fan of the team or not. So support whoever is on the field. The media does play a role in this, and I think that's unfortunate. Peter Lee, Rob Shue, I cheer the Niners on as a collective unit of players rather than just specific individuals. Football's a team sport, not an individual sport. So come on, Niner faithful, do better. That's more of where I fall as well. Is I root for the team. I love the players, love the individuals. My heart is broken for Trey Lance. I want to say that over and over again. And I'm still rooting for my 49ers. Omaha Gloyd, Rob Shue, more worried about running back depth right now. Sunday Night Football, Jimmy unlocks more Debo action. Jimmy does unlock more of Debo's ability to get that yak. Joey Huff, Rob, you still going to the game in Denver? Yes, I am. I will be there. I hope to see you there as well. Dr. Jaspreet, TB12, coming to the Bay. Brady comes back to the Bay, stays near his parents, and he coached his childhood team, helps Trey reach his potential, and works his mechanism. Coach Brady, that would be funny if Brady ended up in San Francisco in any way, shape, or form. I'm here for it. Bring on the GOAT. Rob Shue. Also, people do not think Trey was involved in the play sheet. Naive. I would say Trey was absolutely involved in what he felt he could do within the offense. And I doubt that he had any objection to the plays that he was running. Matthew Mears, never calling quarterback powers, says, let me see if there's a lead into that. Okay, never calling quarterback powers. Any fan with football knowledge knew Lance wasn't going to last. I gave him 3 games, only lasted 2. So every football fan knows more than Coach Shanahan, or Coach Shanahan was attempting to get Lance injured. I don't buy either one of those. And so I believe Coach Shanahan was attempting to win games. He was doing what he felt was best in that regard. And the idea that a quarterback cannot withstand the tackles that come in the A or B gaps, when you're talking about a guy that's 6'4", 225 pounds, that's running back size. Like, I get it. I'm not happy with the number of runs either, but to say he never should have been running, or to say that Kyle Shanahan intentionally got him injured, those are the things I object to. Matthew Mears says, sorry, Rob, not everything has a positive spin. That's true. There are absolutely some things that do not have a positive spin. In this particular case, when we're talking about a game, when we're talking about football, I don't think that's true. You want to talk about war? You want to talk about death, destruction? Sure. There are things in life that don't have a positive side. We're talking about the NFL. We're talking about a player doing what he loves. I just don't get the negativity. Charles Alt, Rob Shue, do you think Trey plays when he's healthy? We got to that one. I do think he plays. All right, catching up in the comments as well. Appreciate all of you, even though some people don't want to have a calm conversation about it. I get it. Jamal Parker, bro, my bad about my outburst on your show the other day. I know we got the win, and that's great and all, but with all the drama that the team has put Trey in, had me pissed when he got hurt. Jamal, I'm with you, man. I understand the frustration is what I'm saying here. I understand the heartbreak. I understand the hurt. I understand wanting Trey Lance to be successful and then going through that traumatic experience of watching him get hurt. It's just the wanting to turn around and redirect that rage at the team, at Kyle Shanahan. That's the part that I don't get on board with. And I should say, I should be more understanding of people that do. And I at least understand where it's coming from. I suppose what I'm attempting to convince people of is that energy, that rage redirected doesn't end up benefiting you as an individual. That's been my life experience, is what I should say. And so the reason I tend to try to turn things around to a positive, the reason that I look for ways in which I can offer constructive criticism as opposed to attempting to tear down an organization or a head coach, is because I believe in putting positive energy out there. It will attract positive energy back towards me. And so I attempt to minimize it. But Jamal, I really want to commend you, number one, for coming back in just to say what you said and for acknowledging, where you were at. Absolutely about it. Matthew Mears says, Kyle never learns, but people want to support him. Okay. It kills me that people want to fire Kyle Shanahan. Like, he would be hired so quick by another team. And who would you bring in to replace him? Who's the next boy genius head coach that's going to get you to a Super Bowl and an NFC championship game? John B. Rob, a little chat cleanser. Did you see Huff bring Lance McDonald's in the hospital? The guys really do like him. Man, I want some Mickey D's. Where's Huff with my dick Mickey D's? I'm telling you, that was almost a big time slip up right there. Yeah, I want my Mickey D's. Ricky Williams says, Rob, do you think we will beat the Broncos? I got 20 riding on. I do think we will beat the Broncos. I'm here for it. I will be there for it, as a matter of fact. All right. I am catching up in the chat because we are behind, and I got to make sure that everybody's still good in the chat. Every now and then you get somebody coming in, charging in with some. That's weird. This is the second person who said, can I not send a super chat? You should be able to send a super chat, but we got one earlier that said they couldn't as well. Come on, YouTube. Open up those super chats. Dr. Jaspreet says, Rob, heard through the grapevine that Trey may be able to do football stuff in 10 to 12 weeks. Could he be back? It's possible. Lester San Jose, Rob Shue. People forget Kyle Shanahan does what Stink calls calling an offense, not just call plays. Jimmy talked about sequencing. I think the Lance runs would build into bigger plays. I absolutely believe that they were building into bigger plays in that game. They may have even been building into setup plays for Seattle, for LA. Kyle Shanahan is all about that. All right, I'm getting back into the previously submitted questions. I will be right back into your chats as well. Whoop, we did get another. Chris Rose said couldn't send a super chat either. Not sure what the problem is with YouTube on that end. My apologies to you. You know I would love to have those super chats. All right, going into this one from Casey Dilla Thrilla. Will Kyle add wrinkles to his play calling so the defenses don't stack the box? He seemed to run consistently on first and second down versus Seattle, but didn't set up much play action. I hope that the 49ers keep a fair amount of the pass play wrinkles in that they worked in for Lance. It'd be a real shame to have a weapon like Danny Gray not be used. Jimmy's quick release is great for play action shots, and he can't overthrow Danny Gray. That's my assertion. Perhaps Shanny felt secure enough about beating Seattle that he was already setting up Denver by showing them very little. This is my assertion. Back to that 2nd and 8 play. If the Niners come out firing against Denver and LA, I'd expect some of it to be set up by what was done in weeks 1 and 2, primarily weeks 2 because of that weather game. Bringing in a first of a couple questions from the notorious GAV, who asked, the 49ers are encouraging people to have a voice and a vote. What happened to our voice when the faithful spoke up in unison and asked for the team to vote for Captain Juice? Gav is still on the Captain Juice train. I got to say, now that I look at the captains that were named, I can't fault the list. They all deserve it. And the next two names did as well with Lance and Debo. To me, the special part of you calling out for Juice, Gav, was that he probably heard it. He probably heard your voice. He probably heard our voices. To me, he got to see the love that the faithful feel for him. That's the important part. That means something. I'm sure he knows how his teammates feel about him, but now he's got a better sense of his super fans, and he knows the notorious GAV is one of those, and I'm here for it, Gav. Bravo for a solid effort, my friend, even if it wasn't successful. Nick B comes in with this one. What position should the Niners look into addressing before the trade deadline? I'm going to say if this is a true playoff push, given the cap space we now have, offensive line upgrade or offensive weapon, running back. Well, the offensive line looks pretty good to me so far, Nick. Many of my own concerns have been lessened, but I understand that some people may still be thinking the jury's still out. So I get your sentiment there. I'm not convinced that there are many upgrades available at the moment for offensive line. As we get closer to the trade deadline, more names will be bandied about. There may be someone who could increase the 49ers' depth or supplant one of the starters. But right now, I would say the O-line's looking good. An offensive weapon, this one's interesting to me. In particular, a true tight end too. The Niners have been trying for a long time. Could they swing a trade for a solid tight end? Yeah. It would add a wrinkle to the offense, insulate the Niners against another Kittle injury, which, if I'm going to be honest, I'm a little bit worried about. And running back, that's interesting as well. It's a position you don't want to overpay for. 49ers fans being acutely aware of that, given Elijah Mitchell and Jordan Mason versus Trey Sermon and TDP. So you don't want to give up too much of an asset, but the Niners are dinged up. I will say Elijah Mitchell will be back by halfway through the season. TDP is going to be back in 4 to 6 weeks. So unless the running back room suffers a season-ending injury, I'd say this is the group going forward. That's my answer. Injury is going to dictate moves by the Niners beyond an addition of a skill player. I still see you, OBJ. OBJ. I got my eyes on that one. All right, we got a couple of remaining questions, one joke question, several rapid fire questions. But right now, I'm getting back into your comments here in the chat. Those of you typing in at Rob Shoe is much appreciated. All right, it looks like we do finally have the ability to put in the super stickers and the super chats. We got Chili Odell. Maybe this is Odell Beckham Jr.'s burner account. He was happy with me mentioning him. He put in the super sticker. So we got super stickers. And then we've got Ellis10 with super chats. So super chats are working for some. Says, how are you, Rob? Niners will go 12-5. Go Niners. I love that prediction. That's a bold one. 12-5. I've still got the Niners sitting at 11-6. I could see them going on a run. This is a special team. Absolutely a special team. Appreciate the super chat. Robert Davis. Thanks for the content, Rob. Test super chat. Robert Davis with the test super chat coming in, confirming that it does in fact work. Much appreciated to that. All right, looking for those at Rob comments. Here's Robert coming in. He says, Rob, where were the Niners before head coach Kyle Shanahan? This is my point of the get rid of Kyle crowd. If you don't have a replacement for him, I'm less likely to listen to that argument. If there's not someone out there who you specifically want above Kyle Shanahan, to me, it is madness to get rid of a genius coach the way in which Kyle Shanahan has proven to me that he is a genius. Offensive-minded genius. In some other areas, he needs to grow. I like this one. Schnozzle Shabizzle. I just like saying Schnozzle Shabizzle's name as well. Not as pissed off as I was yesterday. However, there's a festering disdain I have for Kyle. Moving on, I can't wait to see Purdy developed. Yeah, right. So we're saying that Kyle doesn't develop quarterbacks. I think that's more of a fair criticism than the fire Kyle comments or, saying that he was attempting to get anybody injured. The idea that he has failed to develop a quarterback, that I think there is some merit to. And he may need, that was my whole concern with bringing in an untested quarterback coach and bringing in Brian Griese. However, it seemed to be going well at first. The injury throws everything off. It really does. David, sir, Rob, love your calm and collectiveness. Do you have a change of heart regarding your prediction in our overall record? I don't. I just mentioned it right there. Still 11-6. I think that some of these earlier games become a little bit easier because I do believe Lance was progressing in real games. And some of the later games, I was counting on Lance and his ability to push the ball down the field. And now we don't have that. So some of those later games in the playoffs might be more challenging. Charles Alt, Rob Shue, do you think we make it back to the NFC Championship again this year? I got a feeling about this team. I got a feeling they've got a chance to go all the way. I really do. And if Lance comes back at some point and is there and is somehow used in some way as he's getting back up to speed, could just be even better. Chaz says, Rob, can they entice Alex Mack to come back? Have you seen stuff from Jake Brendel that makes you think he's incapable? Right now, I would say he's acted serviceably as our center. Edgardo says, Super Chat worked for me, but I got ignored. It's okay, Rob, I forgive you. No, that is not acceptable. Edgardo, I am absolutely going to find that Super Chat. There have been quite a few in today's episode and quite a few comments, I should say. The comment section is popping off. And so it's difficult to see them when they come in, but I didn't see one from you. I am attempting to find it. We got Aaron, 49ers first takes. We've got, come on. So many comments. So Edgardo, put it back in for me, free, and we're putting it up. Edgardo, I can't find it. If it was in there, we'll make sure it gets on the screen. And I greatly appreciate the super chat. Absolutely do. Put it back in. I will make sure that it gets on there. Oh, is it later on? Swansong says he has to catch up. Maybe. No, because then his comment wouldn't have been in there. I do have to catch up, but I must have missed it. And I feel terrible about that. Maybe I got to it after you said that, and I'm just misremembering that fact. Edgardo, put it back in if I didn't get to it. That's going to be the end result of it. That's the easiest way for me to make sure that your comment gets on screen. I'm scrolling down to see if Edgardo is still with us and if he has copied and pasted it. He has not. He's like, you're not going to read my super chat? I'm out. I'm kidding, Edgardo. I know you're still here. Copy and paste that thing in. I will absolutely get to it. 49ers football 13-13. Rob Shue, Trey won't get better throwing if he isn't allowed to throw. Running Trey like a running back is playing scared. I think I understand the criticism there. I understand what you're going for. I disagree in that I believe it's attempting to win games. Kyle Shanahan said to himself, what do I need to do in order to balance Trey's progression with winning games? And if he's going to choose between one of those two, I believe Kyle Shanahan is going to choose winning games in the short term. This is the NFL. You've got to win now. Trey was getting passes, so it's not like he wasn't given some opportunities to get better. Could he have gotten more? Yes, absolutely. And that's where I think the discussion becomes. Should he have gotten more? But to say that he didn't get any would be inaccurate. One fast yammy. Rob, do we know replacement Sean Payton? Kyle overrated and only ends quarterbacks' careers and chokes in the fourth quarter. This feels like it's coming from someone who's like, yeah, the idea of getting to a Super Bowl and being seven minutes away from winning it is just as bad as having a 1-16 season. Like, that's my interpretation of these types of criticisms. It's a failure to acknowledge what Kyle Shanahan has been able to do, even with those aspects of his coaching style that need work, finishing big games. He absolutely has to step up his game there. And I'd rather have a coach who can get me to a big game and lose it than a coach who sends me on a 3-14 season. So again, to fire Kyle Shanahan, I feel like I'm biting my tongue. Mr. Cartier 7. Rob, how do you feel about 10 to 12 weeks till recovery? Lance could make a return before the season ends. I'd be here for it. If Lance can come back, I'm all about it. And I'm with Swansong on this one. Brendel's been fine. I don't know that we need a replacement for anyone on the interior of the offensive line. Jeremy Chrisman says, thoughts on Hufanga. How good will he be next to Jimmy Ward? I do think we will see fewer broken plays when Jimmy Ward comes back in. That, to me, feels like the biggest difference. Lester San Jose says, I hope there will be decent beer in Broncos country. I would guess so. I would think that there's good micro brews there in Denver. I personally don't partake, don't have myself a drink, but support those that do. Josh Cook, Rob Shue, the thing I'm saddened by the most with Trey Lance injury is the fact that Trey is such a humble, good-natured kid, and this is nothing short of the worst setback possible. I feel so horrible for Trey. I mean, it is heartbreaking. I wish him nothing but success. But it is a hurdle that if he overcomes, you'll be able to point back to it and say, God damn, this kid really overcame some shit and pulled himself out of it. I'm telling you, that will be something else. All right, I'm looking in to make sure that we didn't get the copy and paste of the missed super chat. Anyone who sees that missed super chat can copy and paste it for me. As long as you do the @Rob and let me know that's what it is, I will make sure to read it out because it annoys me when I miss a super chat. I will probably look it up after the show and make sure it comes on the next show. All right, we're getting back to a couple of these last previously submitted questions. This one from Nick. It's more of a joke, he says. Here's the full one. More of a joke question and just ridiculous, but the way this franchise does things wouldn't surprise me. Kirk Cousins' contract with the Vikings ends this season, and Jimmy G may be gone. Could we actually see player and coach reunite? This is no joke, Nick. This is a reality that could happen. Next offseason is going to be another shit show for the Niners, and we should all prepare for it. You could see more drama around re-signing Jimmy if he's willing. People are going to be screaming that we should trade Trey, which would be crazy. Then there's going to be the national narrative that reminds us that Kyle Shanahan, Kirk Cousins have a love affair ongoing. Would Kirk take a backup role to be back with Kyle if he were behind Trey? Will the 49ers seriously consider bailing on Lance? My answer to those questions is no. I think they've got a very affordable quarterback room with Lance and Purdy, and I don't believe the conspiracy theories around Kyle not wanting Lance as his quarterback, so I believe that the Lance era just got delayed, barring a setback with the injury. So complete health, it's still Lance's team. Over or under on Purdy starting 2 games from Raphael A. It's a quick one. I'm taking the under for 2 reasons. Number one, it's possible the Niners end up replacing Purdy with a more experienced veteran quarterback, which would kill his chances there. So if Josh Johnson comes on the 53-man, that may kill it. I don't know that that's going to be the case. I think Purdy ends up on the 53 the whole year with the comment Kyle made about him backing up Trey, even if Jimmy was gone. That was a surprise to me. But I'm also willing to wager on Jimmy's health, saying he misses fewer than 2 games. I know I'm taking on considerable risk with this prediction. If I were making a bet on this, I'd hope to get at least plus 150 on the odds in taking Jimmy not getting injured. Smash the under on this one of Purdy starting 2 games on the way to the Super Bowl. Let's do it. Let's do it. All right, we're doing a rapid fire segment to close out in the previously submitted questions. But first, we're getting back into the comments because I want to make sure that I get to those people that are here live. We just hit the hoping for decent beer comment. So Abraham back in. Rob, but how is he going to progress throwing when they run him to win games? It's a double-edged sword. You have to allow him to make mistakes and maybe cost you games, but will cause him to get better. It is a double-edged sword, and that is the conundrum of having a Super Bowl-ready roster and an inexperienced quarterback. It's a tough row to plow. Yeah, that makes sense. That is the right saying. It absolutely is. And it's not as if Lance gets 0 passing attempts. So in trying to balance it, if you lean on the run, you're still giving Lance some experience. So I think it's unfair to say that just because you've run him more, he's not getting chances to throw the ball. He is still getting those chances, fewer of them. And that is a fair critique. I would say games are so hard to win in the NFL that winning does trump a little bit of progression by Trey Lance. And that may be cold in looking at it from Lance's perspective, but I'm sure that he looks at it as the most important thing being winning games. JMac49, Rob, so much negativity from fans. Great win against Seattle. Prayers for Trey Lance. Jimmy G will step up and handle business. Love your positive outlook, Rob. I'm here for the positivity. It is acknowledging the pain of losing Trey Lance, acknowledging the hardship that he's going through, and rooting for my Niners. Boatswain Boogie 03, Rob, I'd rather keep Lance off the field till next season. That's a tough one. That is a tough one. Lester, San Jose, Rob Shue, people forget Sean Payton needed Breeze, and yet they only got to 1 Super Bowl, flukes and all. But like Kyle, he needed a quarterback who can function. Yeah, what is true is familiarity breeds contempt. And all 49ers fans are intimately familiar with the 49ers, Jimmy Garoppolo, Kyle Shanahan, and their flaws. And that familiarity has bred contempt of those individuals. And if I'm being honest, my feeling is it has produced an unrealistic belief that the grass is greener on the other side, that we don't have a genius head coach. Ooh, Edgardo comes back in with the super chat. Edgardo, I'm sorry that you put it back in. Really would have put it up without the super chat. But he says, if we are winning with Jimmy G and not because of him, and Trey makes a full recovery after 10 to 12 weeks, how does that work out? Who's quarterback 1? This is the troubling part. And let's be honest. If we're winning with Jimmy and not because of him, that makes it tough. Because you could say, hey, can Trey just come in and fill in? Like, he just won't make mistakes. This is this will be the inflection point for this season and for next year, because it's easy to delay it to the offseason. And the 49ers might do that. They might just say, hey, Trey's not ready to come back, to avoid this chaos if they are winning. That's a tough one, Edgardo. If it's very clear that this team is winning despite Jimmy Garoppolo, that he's making mistakes, that he's not looking sharp, but the team is still winning, then hand it back over to Trey. If they go on a run with Jimmy, I will predict that Kyle Shanahan sticks with Jimmy. I think if they're on a run, he sticks with him. Alan coming in to clarify, Rob Shue, I lived in Colorado. There is good beer there. I'm glad to know good beer in Colorado. I expected as much. Absolutely expected as much. Boat Swain, Rob, I'd rather have Trey get healthy for next season. I have a bad feeling that the locker room will be completely split if you have Jimmy start most of the year just to pull him for Trey that late. It is complicated. It is complicated. I agree. Lester San Jose, Rob Shue, no to not so Captain Kirk. He doesn't look so good. Charles Alt, sneakerhead here on the channel. Rob, a Super Bowl win this season would go a long way to reuniting this fan base. Let's hope. Let's hope that would bring us back together. Because if it didn't, that would be a real shame. Chaz comes in. Rob, do you think Ray and Gray will help open things up for Debo, Ayuk, and Kittle? I do, but only if they continue to take deep shots with Jimmy in there. Rob, if Kyle Shanahan brings Cousins in to compete for the quarterback job, then I would be on board with firing him. Cousins is nowhere near the answer, even at backup. I'd rather ride with Purdy or draft a backup. I like the immediate switch on that one, John. I love it. Absolutely love it. Chris comes in. Rob, if Gore can destroy both his knees in college and be third all-time in rush yards, Lance can still be amazing. 100%. 100% he can. Miguel, Kyle Shanahan is a choker under pressure. There's proven history. But you know what, Miguel? Everyone's a choker until they're not. Everyone's a loser until they're not. Why don't you tell me how great Andy Reid was before he got to Kansas City? Tommy Huxley, Rob, let's see if we can beat a good team. The Sea Chickens are dog water. We don't even know about Denver. We don't even know if they're a good team. We may have to wait until week 4 to find out if we can beat a good team. But I think we beat Denver. Abraham, Rob, I will say this. I think Kyle will change the play calling for Trey next year and run him less and let him use his arm more. I agree. I believe that will be the case because Trey does progress as a passer. Kyle Shanahan will recognize that and lean more on the pass than the run. 100% RC. Rob, the negativity is fan frustration. The 49ers haven't won a Super Bowl since 94. Winning cures everything. I believe in this team. 6 is on the way. Trey is our future. Jimmy is right now. I hope you're right about 6 being on the way. I would. Matthew Mears. Rob, you said give a name. Ken Dorsey. Allen's quarterback coach and offensive coordinator of the Bills. Next, boy genius. Matthew Mears, first and foremost, I would appreciate it if you were just a little bit more polite in your interactions. I don't know what I've done to offend you or to cause you to think that we are in a verbal exchange of barbs. If it was something that I said, may I offer my apologies if I offended you. However, I also must admit that I don't recall what the name you were giving me was supposed to mean. So what name was I asking for? Admittedly, I asked you for something and then quickly forgot about it, Matthew. I'm going to hang around and find out what you mean by that, and I absolutely will address it. Are we talking about the way in which Ken Dorsey has called plays for Josh Allen? You got to remind me, Matthew. Oh, I see. For a Shanahan replacement. Okay, so let's see. We think that it's a guarantee that Ken Dorsey is going to translate from quarterback coach, offensive coordinator of the Bills to be a guaranteed success as a head coach. Remind me, how many Super Bowls have the Bills won? Oh, I'm sorry, none? None. Oh, that's the same as the San Francisco 49ers. Did Kyle Shanahan get to the Super Bowl as an offensive coordinator? Yes. So you make the same logical leap of Kyle Shanahan to head coach. He struggled. Why wouldn't there be a struggle for Ken Dorsey? So are there names out there that are exciting? Yes. Ken Dorsey is an exciting name. Mike McDaniel was an exciting name. They might end up being the next big thing, but they might not. It looks like Mike McDaniel is from Kyle Shanahan's tree, no less. Mike McDaniel might be the real deal. Wait until Ken Dorsey gets his shot. If he flares out, you just put our future in the hands of someone who wasn't going to make it. Hey, if he ends up being the next great thing, I will admit that, hey, Ken Dorsey should have been made a head coach sooner. I won't say that we should have swapped out Kyle Shanahan for him. This idea, like, if you speak to anyone who covers football and ask them about Kyle Shanahan and whether he should be fired, anyone who's not a 49er fan, anyone who's not emotionally invested in this, it's wild to talk about firing Kyle Shanahan. It happened last year, and look at what turned around. This to me, I'm sorry, Matthew. I know that I'm trying to be very chill about my response to it. I just can't. Jan, get it together, Rob. I can't. I cannot. The frustration is too much for me, but I should get it together. Miguel says, true, as of right now, he's a choker. Everybody is until they're not. Does he need to improve? Yes, I do not say that Kyle Shanahan is infallible. Please don't interpret me as saying anything like that. I think there are many ways Kyle Shanahan needs to improve as a head coach. I'm just not willing to fire him. And it's wild to me that people want to. Edgardo comes in. Rob, how about Sean Payton? Again, an exciting name. One Super Bowl win. He had Drew Brees as his coach the entire time he was in the league for the most part. Ellis 10. Kyle is a top 5 head coach. What the hell are they saying? I don't know. I do not know. Hey, Matthew Mears, if you want to reference what Super Bowl winning coach that was, I'm happy to bring it on. But I'm just not willing to devolve into this discussion around firing Kyle Shanahan when, to me, there's very little logical explanation to it. You know what it says to me, Matthew, and I just got to say this. It says to me that you watch Grant Cohn. That's what it says to me. And you know what? I used to collaborate with the dude and still would if he hadn't cut off the collaboration. Maybe at some point I would have tired of the shtick. I think he's funny. I think he's a great personality. I think he generates conversation about the 49ers. I think a lot of his points are bullshit. And they're funny. So we go with them. We amplify them. We send them out there. I trust Lowell. Lowell's opinion, I do trust. And again, I'm not saying you can't criticize Kyle Shanahan. But the idea of firing him, I think when we look back on that, it will come across, as Thomas B says here, firing Kyle Shanahan is a thoroughly idiotic idea. Darren, I missed your comment. Darren, was it a super chat or did I just not get to it at that point? Goodness gracious, I got to get to more of these super chats if it was, in fact, in there. Darren, put it back in there if I did miss it. I don't think I did. I'm scrolling back through and I see it. Sorry, I don't see it. All right. I got pulled down into the mud. Randall Riley, I'm on fire. I am. I'm sorry. It hurts me to feel the fan base divided. And it hurts me to believe that there is one primary source for that. Sometimes I bite my tongue on that. Others, it just comes out. And I get upset. I do. Chaz coming in. Rob, Elway was a choker until he wasn't. Chris Ray. Rob, firing Shanahan would be the worst move since we got rid of Harbaugh. That was a damn poor move. Randall Riley. Damn, Rob, haven't seen you this on fire ever. Truer words have never been spoken, bro. Tommy Huxley. Rob, shots fired. I love it. Yeah. And Matthew, I saw your earlier comment. I don't mean to paint with a broad brush like that. This is my frustration coming out now, and I'm acting poorly. And I want to own that. Matthew, it didn't mean any offense to you. I do find your argument of replacing Kyle Shanahan to be one that I do not agree with fervently do not agree with it. I believe it's clear as day how much genius he possesses as a play caller. The NFL in its entirety is attempting to copy what Kyle Shanahan put down on paper for the 49ers offense, right? Like consistently, you see other coaches implementing Shanahan's own play calling into their own schemes into theirs. The idea of letting go of someone who the rest of the league is copying seems wild to me. Cy M. Murda 187. Rob Shue, I wouldn't say they should fire Kyle Shanahan because sure, maybe there's a great coach you could get, but then you have to implement game plan and a playbook. And even with the most simple, it's something. It's hard, he says. Yes, agreed. It could be a miss. Jan, Rob needs some chamomile tea for the next live. I do. Matthew, we're in lockstep on agreeing that Larry Kruger's a solid watch. Darren Worthington, Rob, did you see Danny Gray yelling at Jimmy G for missing him on the go route? I did not. But I will say on the second route to Danny Gray, it looked like Jimmy was rolling his eyes at Danny Gray. I have a hard time believing that the rookie came in firing. Ellis 10, Rob, you're 100% right on, man. Respect to the truth. I appreciate that. I gotta admit when I'm not freaking acting correctly. I really do have to make sure that I am being the version of me that I want out on the internet. And when I respond to people with a short temper or rolling my eyes, that's not who I intend to be. That's not the conversation I want to have. I say I want to have a dialogue. I need to be better at being a part of that dialogue, even if things are said that then get my blood boiling a little bit. I have to be better at calming that down and remaining within the logical framework of the conversation. Edgardo coming in, Rob, it's what money usually does to people. He wasn't always, that I hate to take shots though. I do. I feel bad for taking shots. Rob Shue, great mailbag. You are only human. We all have our moments. Tebow that like button. I appreciate you guys being sympathetic of the fact that sometimes I'm not the best version of me. Real Deal Sports Talk, Rob. I think a lot of fans forget where we were before Kyle and John Lynch. We were basically the closest thing to the 0-17 Lions from 2015 to 2016. Boatswain Boogie 03, Rob, could we get an actual offensive coordinator so that Kyle could concentrate on getting better as a head coach? I love Kyle, but he's not aggressive enough when it matters most. This could be a really logical suggestion for what both Matthew and I are going back on, because I agree, Kyle Shanahan does need to improve. There are plenty of things I could criticize him for. There are areas I have said I want him to grow as a head coach. As an offensive play designer, I'm not willing to let him go because of the things he does as a head coach. Bringing in a true offensive coordinator could help with that. Lester, San Jose, Rob Shue, Rich Skagg, wrinkles, would have been one of those disciples till Lord Fangio fired him for reasons. Rich Scangrello. John B. Rob, people forget that without Kyle, there is no McVay, Saleh, McDaniels, LaFleur. Guy has a solid coaching tree. An unbelievable coaching tree. Unreal. Paul Dozer. And he just keeps picking new ones. Rob, I don't think he should be fired, but the longer Shanahan coaches, the more I worry he's like Norv Turner, a great coordinator, or like Belichick in Cleveland, going to be great for another team. That is a little more fair to me. Like if you want to say, hey, he really struggles as a head coach, I worry he can take the next step. That's a fair worry. Taking it to the next step of then firing him, I don't go there. Darren, Rob, he gave Jimmy Jesus the business. I didn't see it. I need to check it out. Danny Gray giving Jimmy Jesus the business. The greatest 49. Rob, what's up, my guy? How's your day going? It's going better. I will say I was a little bit off on this show. And I'm telling you. I needed to act right. I needed to get myself under control. Chris Ray, Rob, as a fan base, we need to just focus on getting back to the playoffs and see where we go from there. I'm with it. Supercell Chaser, Rob Shue, if Trent Dilfer can win a Super Bowl with an elite defense, so can Jimmy G. I'm here with it. And yes, Jan, I am only human. I am. Sometimes I react poorly. I will stop doing that now. Let me get back into the last rapid fire questions with Gav here. Rapid fire with Gav. Are we going to see Pro Bowl Hufanga this year? If he keeps up this pace, Gav, yes, absolutely. Richard Sherman called out that not only was it a Pro Bowl pace, but an all-pro pace. Yes, I think he does play at a high enough level to garner a Pro Bowl nod. I'd guess that puts him in the running for all-pro if he continues that next year. Seems like honors like that are always a little bit behind, like the top 100, the all-pro votes. But Pro Bowl, I'm guessing he gets in this year because I think he keeps it up. Next rapid fire. Gav says, Nick Bosa on pace for 25 sacks this season. Would this be enough to put him in the MVP category? Discussion. Let me first say my prediction of 20 and a half sacks is looking good, isn't it? People were like, dude, 20 and a half sacks. That's a lot, Rob. Here we are. Week 2, we got 3. We're headed for it. My answer to your question, yeah, 25 sacks would absolutely put him in the running for defensive MVP. It would almost be a lock. TJ Watt tied Michael Strahan's record for most sacks in NFL history with 20 and a half last year and won the defensive MVP with 84% of the votes. If Bosa ties or surpasses that total, and he's the best in the league this year in sack total, meaning there isn't someone with 26 sacks, then he should be a lock for that award. Ooh, I didn't get the second 25 sacks up there on the screen. This is what you should have been seeing while I was reading out that answer. Last rapid fire with Gav, then I'm closing out in the comments. Are the rookies outshining the vets on the offensive line this year? Will they keep up the same intensity all year? Gav, I got to say so far, yes, but only in regard to expectations. Through 2 weeks, it's fair to say we've seen better play from Banks and Burford than we expected. McGlinchey clearly covered in rust week 1, and Trent has had some rare mistakes to this point. I expect Trent to have an elite season in total, so I believe he will clean things up. McGlinchey, he's going to benefit from additional reps. I'd expect a solid season. This line in its totality has a chance to be a strong one. Even the depth is good. I would expect to see some ups and downs for the interior O-line. Brendel as a new starter and the 2 young gentlemen, sophomore and rookie, they're going to go through their ups and downs. But it seems like we've nailed roster construction so far this year. Bumping up Huff, genius. Samuel Womack starting as the nickelback, phenomenal. Brendel as a center, seems great so far. Banks on the left guard, yes, please, after what we saw in week 2. And Burford claiming that right guard spot. I'm really pleased with the way in which roster construction has gone down. TDP getting a few carries, looking like Jordan Mason could contribute. Man, if we can get through this season without too many injuries, I think we've got an absolute chance at a championship this year. All right, closing out here in the chat. Absolutely appreciate all of the energy here. All right, here we go. Chris Odell says, Rob Shue, I feel feisty Rob. No, I like feisty Rob, 12-5 this year. Liking feisty Rob. We got to start that. We got to get feisty Rob back on the program sometime. Just snap him out of his funk. John B. Rob, I think with Lynn in the building, you can already see a positive impact on some of the head coach decisions for game management. That was my hope with Anthony Lynn coming in. He could be a positive influence on Kyle Shanahan as a head coach. Ellis 10, Rob Shue, you're only human. When you hear nonsense, it's natural to react a certain way. You were still respectful and professional. Showing emotion is not always bad, just shows passion. Thank you, Ellis. Because I was emotional in what I said, I wasn't sure if I crossed any lines. And, you know, I'd rather not. That's who I want to be. I do want to be professional. I do want to be respectful. So I'm glad that I maintained that. I hope that was felt throughout. But again, I still want to apologize for coming across in a harsh manner. CT Law, sneakerhead here on the channel. For laughs, if I was Jimmy, I would tell Kyle and Lynch, get up on the desk and bark like a dog or I'm not playing Sunday. Kid has a lot of power. Shoulder hurts. Brock, you're up. LOL. Never Jimmy, too classy. I like the joke, CT Law. Yeah, Jimmy's in the driver's seat. You know, if he wanted to do some sort of a weird holdout or demand some things, he's in a position to say that. But you're right. I don't think he would. He was a great teammate to this point. I think he will continue to be a great teammate going forward. That's why the locker room was so accepting of bringing him back in as that starter. No doubt in my mind. He's a good teammate. Sim Murder 187 says, Rob, didn't Tom Brady get picked in the 7th and told he'd be a career backup? I think he was picked in the 6th, but same difference. Brock Purdy looks better than people give him credit for. Not saying he's Tom Brady, but you don't know what you got till you see him. Agreed. I want to see more from Brock Purdy. What I saw gives me a taste that he has some limitations, though. He would need to, as Tom Brady did, improve his arm strength. Chaz coming in. Rob, the tough part is folks are running Shanahan's offense better than him now. He's become soft and conservative at times and somewhat predictable. He used to scheme dudes wide open. I still see wide open dudes running down the field. Maybe I'm wrong in that, but I still see it. The greatest 49, Rob. Tayshaun Gibson is looking really good as well. I've been impressed. I wasn't after week 1. I rescinded those negative comments after week 2. He looked far better, and it makes sense. More time in the system. Joey Nichols, Rob agreed that the idea of firing Kyle is pretty much asinine. Having said that, the one guy that might at least make me pause for a moment and think is Sean Payton. Has the offensive mind and the resume. It's fair. There are absolutely names out there you could point to, but none of them are a guarantee is my stance on it. We have a bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush. We got a bird in the hand. Kyle Shanahan. The Oakdale Bubba Niners show. Rob, what time are you doing the live show in the parking lot? Are you renting a car and the Denver Broncos? I'm not renting the Denver Broncos. I am not renting a car. I am going to take Uber. Not sure about the timing. Follow me on Twitter if you want to see it or turn on notifications on YouTube. Absolutely will be going live prior to that game. ENYCE023 says, Rob, great show. Keep it up. Appreciate it. Real Deal Sports Talk already claimed Jordan Mason on my Office Fantasy League. Let's go, kid. I like it. Good choice. Good choice. I've done the same in 2 leagues. Need to do it in another. Joey Nichols, Rob, but I still think I'd ultimately rather have Kyle than Sean. That makes 2 of us. Oakdale Bubba Niners show. Go Niners. Go George Kittle. Go left shoe. Edgardo, Rob, Hufanga and Fitzpatrick are top 2 graded safeties through week 2. Both are ballers. Man, Minkah Fitzpatrick, that was such a good freaking pickup by the Steelers. I was trashing it at the time when they were, so low in the standings in 2019. I was wrong. Mr. Cartier 7. Love, Rob. Glad you're a fellow Niners fan. Stay safe, Brody. Appreciate that. Darren, Rob, never apologize for being you, brother. You're great. Thank you. I really do appreciate that. Stay classy, brother. I will try. I certainly will try. I thought it was a great show as well. And it's one of those that I'm not going to lie. I'm glad we're wrapping this one up because I feel like I got off track. I feel like I let my emotions get the better of me. I feel like I wasn't entirely respectful, and that eats at me when I'm not. I hope it didn't come across that way. I hope I'm being overly harsh on myself at this point in time. But I do want to say that I welcome dialogue. I don't want to shut down conversation. I prefer that it be respectful. And if it's not, and it's on my channel, I'll choose to end that conversation. But as long as it's respectful, we've got to be able to have the dialogue. We've got to be able to disagree. And I will leave it there. Definitely have to bring in Dustin Kohler. Hi, Rob, longtime listener. Great show. Dustin Kohler, appreciate that. Appreciate your support, my friend. Ellis 10, I'm worried about DJ Jones this week. Why? Because this man's coming to eat like he's going to put barbecue sauce all over the 49ers and feast? I hope not. I hope he doesn't have a revenge game. I feel bad. DJ. Luke Luna coming in, Rob Shoe. If anyone doesn't love you, I'll be the one to say it. I think they have underlying issues and just need love. So here's a hug. Luke Luna, appreciate you, man. Appreciate the freaking positivity. Randall Riley, I try. I do try. Aaron James, Rob Shoe, your show is one of my favorites. I honestly hate certain individual, probably more than 99 does. Love your humanity and level-headed takes. I'm an ever-growing world of other people. Be a Mayoko, Lombardi, or Shoe. Appreciate that. Steven, I liked the passion. Hey, if you like the passion, like the video for me before we leave, because this one is wrapping up, and I appreciate everybody who was here. Obviously, very thrilled to have everybody here. Almost everybody here. The greatest 49 says, Rob, give me a stat line prediction for Jimmy G10 this year. All right, so he's been out 2 games. Let's say he cracks the 4,000-yard club. Let's say 4,065 passing yards. 4,065 passing yards. Appreciate it. Pern coming in. Rob, keep up the great work, sir. Stay passionate. Stay red and gold. I got to say, Matthew, I thought we were having a respectful conversation. It doesn't appear that you feel that way as well. So if I offended you, then I apologize. But I'm not going to continue with what feels like a disrespectful conversation to me. And that will be the end of it. Luke Luna coming in. Rob Shoe, stock up. Appreciate you, Luke. Appreciate everyone, even those that disagree with me. And Boots Wayne Boogie is taking the over. A little typo there. He's taking the over on 44,000 yards, so he's really predicting one. But no, that is 4,065. Boots Wayne Boogie is taking the over on it. Darren with the joke says that's 3,000 yards after the catch. Well played, Darren. Yes, 4,065 yards with 3,000 of it coming on Yak. Ellis 10, Rob Shoe, I found your channel from Grant, so I respect him for that, but that's where it ends. You really do a phenomenal job, my friend. I appreciate that. I don't mean to take shots, nor do I intend to throw any air out there and make things public, nor drag anyone else into anything. Today was just a day where, if I'm honest, what happened today was the frustration, not with anything that happened in the past, but with what is going on right now within the faithful, purely within the fan base. And I do view YouTube personalities as contributing to the fan base, but the fan base itself, the reactions that I'm seeing are what have me feeling frustrated because it feels, again, that we're divided, and I hate to see that. So on my part, I'm going to attempt to do better to bring two sides together. I'm going to stay reasonable. I'm going to stay passionate. And I'm going to stay true to me. And that's the best that I can do. Everyone else is entitled to their opinions as well. I hope that we all can do it more respectfully of one another. But so long as that's taking place, I'm here for it. I'm here for the conversation. I am here about it. I don't have a prediction on the touchdowns versus interceptions. But give me a moment. Let me ponder on that. I'll come back with a complete Jimmy stat line next week on the mailbag. Man, we just keep going. And I got to wrap this up. It was a pleasure today. Thank you to everyone for being here. Thank you to those who submitted their questions at 49ersmailbag.com, those who were here in the chat, and everyone, even if we didn't agree. I will be back on tomorrow at 5 p.m. with Between Two Beards. Until then, cheers, faithful.